Be a good example. Come forward. Quite a topic.
Do you want me to get my copy?
I don't think so. No. As Rocky said, it just makes us go to the bathroom. Be sure to stick around for this if you can.
Yeah, I got a concert today. I'm heading out.
Oh,
I'm sorry.
that's too bad. I mean, this would be really worth your while.
I have to run back out to get my coffee because they're out of regular coffee.
Oh my gosh. I know. Why do they bother making decaf anyway? I mean, it's
Where is Rocky? I have his check.
he's doing what I usually do,
Okay.
using the restroom.
Okay, well,
He's on his way. Here he comes.
I will give it to him
Yeah.
at the close, maybe.
Or we have plenty of time now if you want to.
got like they've upped their production quality, but anyway, they had a snowy owl, and Hedwig is a female owl, but the males are actually the snowy, and the girls are more like spotted. So Hedwig.
This you'll want to hold close. Okay, we're set. Good morning. Thank you for sharing your time coming with us this morning. It is my privilege to introduce to you Rocky Casillas. We met this young man, who is a mere babe in our presence, bless his heart, lives in Nerstrand, grew up in Northfield, was a Northfield graduate. Now, just a couple weeks ago, like 2010, he tells me, so that's pretty young these days. So I got to know wonderfully Rocky this last summer, primarily over the last year, because if you missed it, and likely not many people may have seen it, but he had a fabulous solo exhibition at the Northfield Arts Guild this summer, which was spectacular. And what you have in the back is like 1/20th of the scale of that particular exhibit, and it really was outstanding. Well beyond the beauty and the organization, the design of the work that's in the back, and the work that he has done, beyond that, the work is his conceptual commitment to mindfulness and personal mental health. And as you can see, not only mental health, but part of a spiritual practice. So it's really unusual, I think, for his understanding, and I would say compassion and passion for these vital issues at his young age. And it has been really my honor to introduce him to you this morning. I have really enjoyed getting to know him slightly, only not enough yet, but over the last year, and I give you Rocky Casillas.
Thanks so much, Wendell. Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for the invitation to present today. I'm Rocky Casillas Aguirre, and today I'll be sharing a little bit about my mental health journey and how I've used art as a way to heal and to help others. So we'll get right to it. First, I'll tell you a little bit more about myself. So I'm originally from Tijuana, Mexico, which is the largest city in Baja California and a border town. It's about half an hour from San Diego. That's where I grew up. My family and I moved to Northfield when I was about 8, so I started at Bridgewater and went all the way through high school. Class of 2010, and I've been drawing all of my life. If you ask my mom, since the age of 5, all I wanted for birthdays and Christmas was coloring pencils and notebooks. And there was when I graduated high school, which, as you can imagine, art was my favorite class. I was the kind of student who would doodle on their homework and draw on the whiteboard whenever I get a chance. There was a fork in the road when I graduated high school for me. On one side, it was biology, and on the other side was animation, two of my biggest passions. And at the time, I heard the concept of starving artist. I don't know if any of you are familiar with that. The idea that there's no money to be made in the arts. And coming from an immigrant family, I was like, well, I can't choose art then. I have to choose a career path that I can be successful in, that will bring in money so that I can support my family when the time comes. So I chose the sciences and left animation, the dream for animation behind. I put all my materials away, locked them up in drawers, and didn't touch art the whole time that I was in college. So I studied at the U of M, Fisheries and Wildlife Management, and then I went off to New England, to Antioch, to get a master's in conservation biology. So I'm self-taught in everything that I do now. So I think life works in mysterious ways because I spent so much time in the sciences and life brought me back full circle to the arts because I'm here in front of all of you talking about art. And then I put up some affirmations or quotes that have been really helpful for me that I'll read to you. The first one here is, "You are a light in the universe. Believe in yourself and you'll find your way even in the darkest of times." And the second one, "You are not your thoughts. You are the awareness that recognizes thoughts are occurring." And again, I mentioned these have been really helpful, especially in the last few years since the pandemic. And that's because during COVID, I sort of lost myself. I know COVID was a really hard time for a lot of people. People were getting sick, people were dying. I lost my grandfather during COVID, and I suffered a lot from anxiety and panic attacks, more so than I'd ever in my whole life. So I had panic attacks during the day, I had panic attacks at night. There were several times that I ended up in the ER because I mistaked panic attacks for heart attacks. I think at least 3 times I was in the ER during COVID. The other times I was in clinic lobbies waiting to be seen by psychologists and sleep specialists because I was so anxious that it was affecting my sleep. I was sleeping maybe 2 or 3 hours a night, which meant that the next day I was anxious again because lack of sleep does that to you. And so I was stuck in this cycle of anxiety, insomnia. There were times that, it got so bad to the point where I had to stop working for a while. I had no creativity, no imagination. I was just pretty much living in fear during that whole time. There were some times where as soon as it would start to get dark outside, I'd start shaking because I knew or just could imagine that I wasn't going to be able to fall asleep. And I would shake so badly that my girlfriend had to hold me down. So I ended up getting prescribed muscle relaxers and sleep medication for anxiety. There was one night I remember because of the lack of sleep, I was hallucinating. So I was laying in bed, and I opened my eyes and saw this swarm of flies above my bed. And then when I ran to get the light to turn it on, there was nothing there. So people close to me were scared for me, and I was scared for myself because I'd never gone through something like that before. And the medication did help me bring me down to a state of equilibrium. But it wasn't helping with all of the other thoughts and feelings and experiences that I was going through. And I remember one night, it was 1 a.m. I couldn't sleep, so I was on the couch, and I started feeling like the walls were closing in on me. Just feeling claustrophobic. So I ran outside and sat on the steps to the entrance to my apartment building, and I was the only one out there, just looking up at the sky and thinking to myself, why is this happening to me, and how am I going to get better? And I realized then that it wasn't my apartment that I was running away from, it was myself. I was trying to escape myself, which is a very hard thing to do because you're kind of stuck with what you've got. So I said to myself, if I have to get better if I want to keep living, because this is the only way forward, this is the only option. And so that's when I stopped running. I stopped being afraid. I stopped running away from my feelings and from the experiences that I was going through. And I started searching for spirit. I started looking inward. I was raised Catholic. So when we moved to Northfield, I went to St. Dominic Church all through elementary school and middle school. And then it seems like the older I got, the further apart I got from the church, the further away I got from the church, and there were a number of reasons why. One of the reasons was because I didn't like how patriarchal it was. The other reason was because I believed and believe that I should be able to have my own direct relationship to God. I don't need a priest in the middle forgiving me for my sins or having a conversation with God on my behalf. Like, that's something that I should be able to do. And then the other thing is that Catholics are not only not friendly to, but judgmental of queer people. People in the LGBTQ community, which I'm a part of. So for all of those reasons, the Catholic Church was not resonating with me, and I left. But after that night that I was telling you about, where I was sitting at the steps of my apartment building, I had nowhere else to go. Like, I was at the end of my rope, as they say, like just very desperate. And I found myself at St. Dominic's Sagrario, which translates into the sanctuary. I found myself in the sanctuary just weeping. I was praying that I could find healing, that I could find a way to make the pain go away. And I think that I was listened to, because a few days later, I was walking downtown, and I noticed this like very narrow entrance that led up to a second floor next to Cakewalk. And I'd never noticed it before in the 20-some years that I'd been here. Do any of you know what that entrance leads to? It's to the left of Cakewalk. Some people do. It's the Buddhist Meditation Center, Northfield Buddhist Meditation Center. And before I tell you what happens there, I'm going to go on a relevant tangent, because there are many definitions and misconceptions about meditation and Buddhism. So this definition I have up here is my own, and it's based on my personal experience with meditation, as well as looking up how others define it, and then picking and choosing words that resonate with me based on my experience. So, what is meditation? A type of mindfulness practice and an act of self-love whereby you rest your awareness on the present moment without judgment to connect to yourself, your inner self. And because meditation is an act of love, you don't have to be Buddhist to practice it. And as a good friend of mine puts it, Buddhists don't have a claim to meditation. They simply have been practicing it the longest, because it's believed that meditation started in India 5,000 years ago. But meditation is also practiced all over the world. Here in the West and Mexico, there are pockets in different places where people practice it. And the Buddha was one of the early teachers of meditation. But the Buddha is not a god. A lot of people think that the Buddha is a god. The Buddha was not a god, isn't a god, and is not prayed to as a god. So it's a religion that doesn't conflict with other religions. And the Buddha, whose real name was Siddhartha Gautama, he was an Indian prince who was sheltered by his father his whole life. Well, his early life. He wasn't allowed to leave the palace until he snuck out when he was like in his late 20s. And he saw elderly people, sick people, people dying, things that his father was trying to protect him from. His father was trying to protect him from the world's suffering. So when he saw all these people in the village, he was pretty affected by it. And the story goes that he sat under a Bodhi tree. I don't remember actually for how long, months, years. He sat there until finding the answers to suffering. Like, why do humans suffer, and how do we alleviate suffering? And then dedicated the rest of his life to teaching others how to alleviate their own suffering. So the Buddha was a teacher, and we do talk about him at the Buddha Center here and there, but we don't pray to him. So back to the Northfield Buddhist Meditation Center. I mentioned that I truly believe that I was brought here after I was praying for help, essentially. And it was the first time in my life where I felt like something bigger than myself was watching over me. Not because someone was telling me so, but because that was my experience. Like, somebody wasn't telling me there is a God, you should believe in God. That was me finding it out for myself, if that makes sense. And I've met so many wonderful people at the Buddhist Center who have taught me how to be loving and kind and gentle and compassionate and patient with myself, things that I wasn't before. And when I started to feel better, because I was attending the Buddhist Center every day after work. The sit starts from 5 and it ends at 5:30. So every day, whether I felt like it or not, because some days I'd be tired from work or just didn't feel like it, or I'd be really anxious, I would still go. I would show up every day, and anxiety would be right there with me at first. So I'd be sitting with my eyes closed for half an hour, just sweating and shaking. But eventually, it started getting better. I started to feel more at ease, more peaceful, and there are a lot of scientific articles that talk about why mindfulness and why meditation work on your brain and the nervous system. And it's fascinating. As a scientist, I love learning about that stuff. And I could talk for the rest of the time just on that, but I'm not going to this time. But look it up. It's really cool. And so because I started to feel better, my creativity was coming back. And it wasn't like I found my old self. I was finding my true self, because I was way better than even before COVID. Like, before any of this happened to me, I felt like, well, and even today, I mean, this is me now, I'm much more aware of myself and more intentional about how I show up in the world. And so with my creativity coming back, I started personifying my feelings. And this is a very short cast of the feelings that I experience and that we all experience. I've drawn maybe like 30 or 40 of them. And by accident, so by giving them their own identity, I was able to create a little bit of distance between myself and the feeling. So, because feelings don't define us. They're not part of our identity. They're things that we experience, things that visit us. So, as an example, rather than calling myself an anxious person, I would say I'm a person who experiences anxiety. And the distinction is very important because words are powerful. So the way that you refer to yourself and the way that you relate to your emotions has a big impact on how you navigate the world, like how you're feeling on the day-to-day. And so I was creating some distance between them, seeing them as visitors, but also learning to sit with them instead of pushing them away, because that's what we do instinctively, is we don't like to feel anxious or depressed or angry, so we try to mask it doing other things. We distract ourselves, or we, like I said, we push them away. But it's important that we sit with our feelings, because all of our emotions, whether it's joy, sadness, frustration, they show up for a reason. You feel them for a reason. You just have to try to be more aware of why they're there and learn from that, from what they're trying to tell you about yourself. And so acknowledging them is what helped me eventually overcome that anxiety and those panic attacks that I was having, by just sitting with them. So through this art therapy that I was going through, teaching myself how to go through, and then meditation. So art and meditation taught me that the pain that I was going through was necessary. I needed to go through all that suffering, which lasted, I think, like a year and a half. I needed to go through all of that so that I could grow and find myself, but also find a way to help other people. So I was able to harness that new energy and turn pain into purpose. So at the end of 2020, I started an art studio called Rocaturas. And the mission of my studio is to help young people realize their potential, find freedom from suffering, and also learn to befriend their feelings and live authentically. And I'm doing this by creating mindfulness and mental health resources that I didn't have growing up, because mental health, talking about mental health is taboo in a lot of cultures. There's a lot of stigma around it. So I didn't grow up in a household that was emotionally intelligent. And it's like one generation after another, right? Like nobody knows what to do about their feelings. So then you don't know how to teach your kids to be aware of their feelings. But a lot of young people today, I don't know if you know, Gen Z especially, are suffering from anxiety, depression, and suicide more at higher rates than older generations. And you only need to turn on the news to find out why. There's so much going on in the world right now that add a lot of pressure and a sense of responsibility on young people. Climate change, politics, and then when you talk about kids of color and queer identifying kids, discrimination, their rights being taken away. And so there's my work, really, I try to reach all youth with a very specific intention of reaching people, young kids of color and LGBTQ as well, because of the higher rates that they're suffering with mental health than others. And I'll share with you some of the projects that I've been working on lately, starting with some books. So on the left, Twitch and the Mystic Weenie is a comic series that I started a couple years ago. And it follows a campfire flame named Twitch, who's about 8 years old in human years, and a 5,000-year-old hot dog named Mystic Weenie, who is Mystic Weenie is Twitch's mentor, guru, guide, whatever you want to call him. And they go on a magical adventure of self-discovery together. So the overarching theme in this series is that Twitch does not like being a flame. He has identity issues. Everything that he touches, he turns to dust or sets on fire, and he doesn't understand why he was born that way. He would love to be literally anything else but a flame. But Weenie and some of the friends they meet along the way, like Pablo the Snail and Jerry the Fly and all these other crazy characters, they teach him that actually you were born a flame for a reason. We just have to figure out why, and learn how to tap into your own strengths, your own power. And spoiler alert, he accepts himself in the end. But it's a very long series. A lot of humor, a lot of mindfulness tips and things that I've learned along the way. And then on the right, we have Twitch again. So Twitch is like Mickey is to Disney. I put Twitch everywhere. He's the character through which I've decided to share all of the learnings in my life. So Twitch is here on the cover of Where Did Anxiety Go?, which is a rhyme book for kids 3 to 5. It's meant to be read with a teacher or with a parent. This book has been translated into 4 languages, so Spanish, English, Somali, and Swahili, the most spoken languages in our area, Northfield-Faribault. And it teaches kids about the symptoms of anxiety, so how to recognize when anxiety is knocking on the door. It also talks about some of the reactions that our body has when anxiety shows up, that are not super helpful, but that are normal, and then how to befriend your feelings, how to befriend anxiety, and how to sit with it. And then it has like a little mental health check-in at the end. I've also been animating. So I mentioned at the beginning that I gave up animation for biology. But I've taught myself how to animate. So I don't have a degree in animation, but I have spent a lot of time on the iPad just trying to figure it out. And I made this 2-minute video, this 2-minute cartoon called Stresszilla that shows the long life friendship between stress and anxiety, and what happens when you hide from them for too long. And this animation, I found out a couple weeks ago, was selected for the Serpentina Film Festival, so it'll be shown at the Parkway Theater in Minneapolis next week. And that film festival showcases the work of Latino filmmakers in Minnesota. So thank you. This animation means a lot to me because, like I mentioned, I don't have an animation degree. But it's an example of you being able to do anything that you set your mind to. Like if you want to make something happen, you have to put in the time. And this animation is on YouTube if you want to see it and laugh about anxiety and stress. The other thing that I've been doing is engaging with kids in person at schools, homeless shelters, libraries, and it's really meaningful work as well because I can connect with kids through my books and through my animations, but it's very different to be in person with them, seeing their excitement, seeing the light bulb go off when we're talking about something. So usually I'll do read-alouds or step-by-step drawing sessions, and Twitch is very popular with young people. And I'm hoping to be able to do this more and more as time goes on. The other thing, like Wendell mentioned, was this solo gallery that I did this year called You Are the Universe. It was debuted at the Arts Guild and then at Mercado Local last month. And I have to thank Wendell for part of its success because he was my mentor during that time and made me do the hardest thing ever, which was take pieces out of the show because I made too many. I had like 74 pieces, and he's like, we don't have enough wall space. You have to take 10 out. And I was like, Wendell, but I like all of them. He's like, yes, but let's start putting them in the hallway because they can't all be in the show. You need to give the walls space to breathe. And so I learned a lot from you. Thank you for that. I needed that. And so, yeah, the show was like 70-some pieces. It was a mixture of framed art, stuff on foam core, these like cardboard cutouts that you could take selfies with. And then there was like a medicine cabinet. I wanted it to be interactive and immersive, so you could touch things. And Stresszilla was also projected on one of the walls, so you could watch, you could touch and feel, you could read, and it was a very successful show at the Guild. Michael, the director there, told me that it's one of the most successful solos he has seen. We had like 700 people see it in a month that it was there. And the point of doing this gallery was to create a safe space for people to talk about mental health. I wanted to break the silence on mental health. I wanted to help normalize the conversations around mental health. And so all of my pieces were bilingual, and they talked about the science, the remedies, and causes of stress and anxiety. And the pieces here in the hallway are from this show. So there's a little bit of this gallery here too. And then to wrap things up, because I don't know what time it is. Okay, thanks. So art has always been an important form of creative expression for me, a way to de-stress and a way to make sense of the world. And since COVID and over the years, I have found that art is also a very powerful tool for raising awareness, for changing minds, for changing perspectives, for bringing people together, for helping people feel less alone, for talking about things that nobody else is talking about. And it's become a spiritual practice. So when I was a kid, a 5-year-old, I was drawing for fun, doodling monsters and all these things, creating my own world of cartoons. And I'm very grateful that I still have that same imagination from when I was a kid, because I'm still doodling monsters and creating worlds. But now they have purpose. Like now it's not just for fun. I'm using art as a vehicle to help myself and to help other people. So what's next? I have a lot of goals, a lot of ideas. Getting books in stores is one of them. So right now, the books that I showed a little bit ago, they're on my website, they're downtown, or they're at events that I'm physically selling them at. But if I could get my books in stores, that means that they would be at like Target and Barnes and Noble across America and maybe abroad. It would be awesome to be able to reach more kids than just like my immediate community, you know. I'm always thinking bigger, and then starting an animated series. So I'd like to have a team of animators and maybe start on YouTube or something, or get picked up by Netflix. You never know. But I know that kids learn better when they're entertained. So like for me, thinking about my nephews, wanting to see them grow up with my cartoons, with my characters, and hearing some of those messages that I have to share, because a lot of stuff online and on TV is not that great for kids. So I think that my cartoon would do well, because not only does it have these goofy characters, but it has a message behind it, which honestly kids need. And the more that the younger kids gain emotional intelligence, the better probability that they will have a happier, healthy adult life. And that's really the goal. And then I mentioned working more with schools, so crossing my fingers I get to work with Karna at the high school next year. That would be awesome. Traveling to conventions, so I've already kind of started doing that, selling my comics at Comic-Cons, but just like continuing to get further and further away from home so that I can meet more people and continue to build a community of creators around me. And then I put whatever life brings my way, because you can only plan so much. And then life will just throw opportunities at you, and you have to be ready to catch those. Like being here, I didn't intend, or I didn't know that I would be coming here this year. You know, like I didn't know that I'd be standing in front of all of you giving this presentation. But Karna reached out, and I was like, yes, let's do it. And I'm thankful that you did. So I want to thank you again for inviting me to share a little bit about myself, and for inviting me to have art in the hallway. I hope that after having learned a little bit about me, that you find some comfort in those pictures, knowing that there was a lot of love and intention and spirit put into them. So thank you.
Thank you, Rocky. So glad you're here. I just want to say I agree that things just happen, and I'm so glad that we happened to meet. I'm so honored to know you, and I'm so excited about possibly working with you in the future. We've been scheming a little bit. We already met on Thursday about planning a residency at the high school with students in my graphic design class. I've always wanted to bring animation into that class, so we're already having some fun, starting to do some planning. I'm looking at Amy Narveson right now thinking Rocky might be interested in a residency out at Prairie Creek because they do an artist residency every year. So there's a lot of potential. But I wanted to say it's so serendipitous to meet Rocky. I run a club called, it's a mental health awareness club called Bring Change to Mind at the high school, and it's been going on for about 4 years. We're like one of 600 mental health awareness clubs in the country. It's based out of San Diego or San Francisco. But what's kind of amazing when I listen to Rocky is just to hear what he has to say about youth and just the importance of teaching mental health. I know in my own classroom, there is so much evidence for the need for these kinds of conversations, and our club is all about starting the conversation, which is also a mission you have. And what I find fascinating is when I get on my soapbox every once in a while because I'm noticing perfectionism or I'm noticing anxiety, I'll just say, hey, can you listen for a second? And they might look up or not because they're probably painting or drawing, and I'll kind of not demand it. But I'll just say, can you just listen for a second? I need to talk to you about anxiety. We just need to talk about anxiety. And I'm telling you, this is evidence enough for me. When I say the word anxiety or perfectionism or something that we don't talk about, they all turn and look. I don't care what they're doing. I don't care how invested they are in that thing that they're doing, and they love art. They will stop and look up at me like this, the whole class. That is all I need to know that they are not talking about this, and they need to. So it's fascinating to me. There's evidence that makes it very clear that we need to continue to have these conversations. And I think there's a lot of innocence in us as parents in that we were not taught necessarily. It's very difficult to know how to teach our own kids these things. So we need people, we need to collaborate, we need experts to help us, and I'm really looking forward to working with you. We've been talking about Compass, which is a roster of artists in the Twin Cities. They have about 150 artists. I called them the other day and I said, hey, I know this person who's really amazing. They said, well, we don't take artists all the time, but we really need artists willing to work with elementary kids and who are working in the fields of digital art and animation. I'm like, okay, I got a great artist for you. So it's super fun to make these connections. So I was wondering if you had any questions for Rocky.
Where do you get the most benefit? Should we buy it at Urbana Bible, or should we buy it?
Yeah, the books you said? Books, yeah. So I have the books on my website, workaturas.com. I do have them at Mercado Local and Verbena Vinyl downtown.
And an advertisement is that there is a special event this coming Tuesday at 3:30 at that location downtown Northfield.
Yes.
Next Sunday.
Mm. Yeah.
Yeah?
So they take a commission. So if you wanted to directly support, that would be through my website. And then you can also find my art on social media if you guys are into Instagram and all of that.
Nancy.
Will you ever consider addressing adults as well? Because I can see so many grandparents and people that know children and adults themselves who are children in their hearts, who aren't any different than children when it comes to these subjects. And I think what you're doing is across the board for everybody, not just kids.
It is, yeah.
And to see adults as ambassadors for your work, because they can reach out to so many other young people as well.
Yeah, thank you for that. Yeah, it's true. I mean, anxiety has no age discrimination, right? Anxiety will show up whether you're a kid, adult, elderly person. We all live in bodies that think and feel. So we're going to experience thoughts and feelings no matter how old we are. And it's funny what you're bringing up about adults, because I'm working on another book about anger, and it was my 60-year-old aunt who asked me to write it, because she's like, what do I do about anger? I've been dealing with anger all of my life. And there are, like Karna was saying, we have one generation after another that doesn't, my parents didn't teach me about emotional intelligence, my grandparents didn't teach my mom, and so on and so on. So there are a lot of people, a lot of adults who could benefit from this too, because it's never too late to learn how to befriend your emotions.
So again, just as a benefactor of your work for adults,
Yeah.
that adults can be ambassadors.
Yeah. True. Yeah. I would love that. However, we could make that happen. But yes, I'm open to working with all ages on this.
Does anybody else have a question?
Yeah. My question is, do you miss the science, or do you feel like you've just incorporated that right into the whole of all the art that you're doing?
Oh yeah, that's a great question. I have found a way to incorporate sciences into this comic series. For example, Twitch lives in an abandoned fire pit in the middle of the woods, and there's symbiotic relationship between mushrooms and trees, and I can bring in the sciences and visually show what that looks like. Of course, it doesn't look exactly like in real life, like a mushroom passing on a sugar cube to another mushroom as a way to process information and all of that. But I can bring biology into it, which is something that other comic creators have said is actually beneficial. Like, instead of having studied writing or illustrating, because that's the traditional route. A lot of illustrators, a lot of comic book writers have a degree in writing or graphic design or illustration, and so they don't have this other knowledge base that I do, which is sciences, and then actually bringing sciences into this industry. It's not as common. So I'm finding that I can marry the two. And then later along the story, there's a hermit crab that's wearing a broken bottle as a shell, and we're talking about ocean conservation and wildlife conservation there. So yes, there are examples in the book where I'm bringing in themes of conservation and protecting nature that I'm very grateful for. At one point I did regret the sciences, just thinking I could have been so much more ahead if I had done animation, but everything happens for a reason in the time that it did. So I can't regret the journey that has made me who I am. So.
As a funny sidebar, I had no art teacher. I grew up in a little bitty town in Wisconsin, but my favorite course in all of school was biology.
Yeah.
Because I could draw there. I could draw the plants and the bugs and all the whatever. So that was my best ever course in high school. I always thought I wanted to be an artist, but nonetheless, that was the one that got me. So it made me smile when you talked about biology.
Yeah. The mural? Oh, yeah. So I got a commission from the city of Northfield to, you guys all know where the Archer House was, right? There's a fence there that some people have referred to as an eyesore, because that was just a gaping hole and they don't know when they're going to reconstruct it. So the city commissioned me to cover the entire fence with a 170-foot mural. So you'll see Twitch downtown soon.
Congratulations.
Thank you. It's all digital, so I'm working on the iPad day and night, and it'll be printed on this indoor-outdoor material that will then be installed on the fence.
Do you have a timeline?
It's due on Thursday. Yeah. They gave me 3 weeks to do 170 feet of design. They're like, we want it by winter walk. I'm like, okay, I think I can do it.
Well, they're paying you the big bucks.
I charge them extra for rush order, of course, because it's my mental health. Like, I'm working nonstop on this now. And the mural, it'll celebrate Northfield authors and illustrators. So all 16 10-foot panels will have over 100 books that have been written and illustrated by Northfield storytellers. So you'll see my characters reading books that were written by somebody else, and it'll be really cool. Yeah.
Well, we want to thank Rockies.
Yeah. Thank you.